Two, one. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Dave and Boris here, where we have been discussing here on Delusions of Grandeur many films that have to do with the haunted house, shall I say, genre uh,
Oh
of,
yeah.
of films. And last week we went on about a remake of this film that we are going to be discussing. Most times I try to do the original and then the remake, but I wanted to do it from a remake back to the original and see how see how thoughts went going that way. So um, because sometimes there are differences, and sometimes there are things that are likable of each. But sometimes you can be influenced by the remake more than the original. But I had you go on about the original 13 Ghosts. It was filmed in 1960. It was directed by William Castle, which we've discussed at least one film by him so far, and that would be The House on Haunted Hill. Um, so, knowing that, that film was filmed in 1959. This film was filmed the year after. What were your first thoughts on this? Actually, you know what? I'm just going to do a little small synopsis before we go into first impressions. Uh,
Okay.
a family inherits what proves to be a haunted house, but a special pair of goggles allows them to see their ghostly tormentors.
Mm.
So, what were your first thoughts on this film? And was this a first time watch for you?
Yes, today I watched this movie for the first time, and my first thoughts were that it was, well, the remake was very different from the original, but it was definitely worth to see both versions. And one thing I really was curious about regarding this movie was what the house was going to look like, because in the remake we had this fancy house with glass walls and so on. And since I knew this movie was from 1960, I assumed it had to be something different, because something like what we saw in the remake would have been probably pretty difficult, if not impossible, to put together back then. Yeah, so I was really curious to see what the house looked like in the original, and yeah, it was different. And the story is much different too, but yeah, each version is interesting in its own way. So
I had not I had not seen this film first myself. So I think that's kind of why I went from the remake to back to the original, because I saw the remake in the theaters um, when I saw it first, and then I realized that it had a an original, and um, they ended up coming out with a William Castle collection with 8 films on it and some extra bonus features and all that jazz. And 13 Ghosts was on this, along with another one of my favorites of William Castle's called Mr. Sardonicus. Um,
ooh, cool.
so, it, uh, to me, William Castle is one of my favorite directors from the 50s on up, because he was an entertainer, and he would actually get the audience a little bit more involved in his theatrical stuff. For this particular film, you would be handed this ghost viewer, which had it had like a top and a bottom, and it was called the ghost viewer. And every time the screen went blue, you would look in the red. It had a red and blue. It was like pre 3D or whatnot,
Ooh.
and he called it a process called Illusion O. Um, and it was kind of a 3D process. It was in the theaters. Most scenes were black and white, but scenes involving the ghosts were shown in the process dubbed Illusion O. The filmed elements of the actors and the sets, everything except the ghosts, had a blue filter applied to the footage, while the ghost elements had a red filter and superimposed over the frame. Um,
Ooh.
the audiences received blue cellophane filters. Unlike early 3D glasses, where one eye is red and the other is cyan or blue, the Illusion O viewer required people to look through a single color with both eyes. So, choosing to look through the red filter intensified the images of the ghosts, while the blue filter removed them.
Very interesting.
So,
I
but
I
in the very beginning of the film, you actually get a small introduction by William Castle. What did you think about that introduction?
Oh, you mean when we see each ghost individually?
No, the director actually told you in the very beginning um, what how to use the viewer, and then um, before he left us with whatever, him and a skeleton disappeared.
I think that didn't happen in the version I saw.
Okay,
Uh,
it happened in the version I saw. Um, he actually likes to introduce most of his films, and what he did is he showed you how to use the viewer, and then at the end there was a skeleton sitting in a chair, and he was like, shall we meet the audience at the theater?" And then they both disappeared, and the film began.
oh, whew.
um,
Well, I
and he
guess.
advised people if they were sitting next to someone who hadn't heard the instructions, please instruct them how to use the viewer. It is imperative that they learn and know how, so that they can be aware of the spiritual presence. Uh,
Wow.
so
Uh,
it was kind of it was kind of unique, because he did. I mean, he didn't do so um, in the beginning of the House on Haunted Hill. He
oh,
did so on this particular, I guess, set. I guess
in in House of Haunted Hill, I do remember some introduction, but in this one,
it was
it
an introduction by Frederick Lawrence and William Pritchett. Uh,
uh, yeah, yeah.
but I want to say something about that, because during the words of this film, we get moaning and all that jazz that is kind of similar to what we hear in the beginning of House on Haunted Hill. Do we not?
Uh, yeah.
A very eerily creepy beginning here. So some of the similarity. Well, after seeing this film, I enjoyed it, because I think at one point in time I had a 3D thing that I could kind of use at the time, because I had 3D glasses from another um, set, not like this one, but one that had 3D glasses with like blue and red. So I just looked
Oh,
through one side or the other, just for the effect, and
yeah.
I ended up Well, and 3D glasses nowadays just come in one black color, so it's a real different process now.
Uh, yeah, I have some of those red and blue 3D glasses somewhere, just not quite here at hand, but I do have them somewhere.
But it's an interesting process because um, with 3D glasses, you get to see an image in more of an element sometimes than it was originally presented. And I think some of the earlier 3D films include Creatures from the Black Lagoon. Um, let's see, what was House of Wax was in 3D, the original
Oh.
with Vincent Price. So these are some of the films that were 3D was in for kind of a while, and then it went phased out, and then it phased back in the '80s a little bit, and then it phased back out, and then not too recently it phased back in again because I've heard people say that Alice in Wonderland land was the one with Johnny Depp. That one was supposedly really cool in 3D. I don't know. I didn't go see it in 3D, but
Yeah. The
but
first 3D movie I saw was Spy Kids 3D.
Spy Kids. Oh yeah, I remember that one. That one
Uh,
it came with 3D glasses when it came on
y-
the DVD.
yes, yes, I have a few of those somewhere.
I think the first one in 3D that I have actually seen was a copy of Creatures from the Black Lagoon. This one was one of them, even though they call it something different. Different, the Illusion O process. It's a little different because um, it's only one color where 3D is actually using two colors. So it was a marketing gimmick for William Castle at the time, and I think it worked for his audiences to have something different where you've got to hold this thing up and go like, eek, eek, eek.
Mm, well, probably, honestly, I thought something like that wouldn't have even been possible back then.
Well, it was possible. And William Castle knew that, and having the audiences involved meant he wanted them to be entertained. He was an entertainer, and I think he wanted to put on a show while scare the shit out of them. So, which I guess we do get kind of a creepy storyline here. So apparently we have a family, um, and they are none other than the Zorbas. We have Buck, Medea, Cyrus, and Hilda Zorba, who are a family of four. Who suddenly they uh, um, told that they have inherited a house from an uncle, I believe, if I remember
Uh,
correctly.
yes,
And this uncle, what is his name?
Plato, I think.
Plato Zorba.
Yes.
So Plato Zorba has was an apparent occultist who talked to the dead and apparently amassed a sort of a fortune. And so they inherit this house and they inherit the ghosts that go along with it. And they're given at the reading of the will a box that when they open it, it has these big honking. looking glasses that apparently we learn later it shows some of the spirits that are trapped in the house. So, what
Yeah.
do you think about that meeting and reading of the lawyer? And what do you think about that slick lawyer?
Well, he was definitely a surprising one compared to the one in the remake. Like he had a much more relevant role in the original and much more surprising one. As in the remake, he was kind of a side character who, spoiler alert, got killed fairly quickly into the movie, and in this one, well, things were kind of different.
Oh yeah. Um, so really, the star of this film is actually young Buck in a way. In fact, he got top billing for a child actress at the age of 12. Um, uh, Buck Zorba, he is played by Charlie Herbert, who's actually been in a number of B movies, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
Um, he was in one episode of the Twilight Zone in the 60s, but before this, one of his last roles before this was the boy, or actually, one of his last roles was the boy and the pirates. But he was also in Please Don't Eat the Daisies. Um, he was in The Five Pennies. He was in The Man in the Net. He was in Houseboat. He was in the original The Fly. He was in The Colossus of New York. Um, but yeah, he was in Alfred Hitchcock Presents in one episode.
Oh,
So
cool.
he was a child star. I mean, his acting ended up stopping in the late '60s, and he's evidently evidently died at the age of 66 in 2015.
Oh,
But he is our star. So, what do you think of young Buck uh, Zorba?
well, he definitely was a very good actor, and his character was also pretty interesting. It's very obvious how his character inspired the little Bobby in the remake. They do have many similarities.
Yeah, he does seem to be very active, uh, and he's definitely all for the whole living with the ghosts thing. So
Yeah,
he's definitely excited about having ghosts in the house. He's like, "Oh, gee whiz," kind of thing.
yeah, a very brave kid.
What do you think about his sister Medea?
Whew. Well, she was pretty good looking uh, as a character. Well, uh, she was kind of in the shadows. We didn't really get to know too much about her character from what I remember.
No, just the fact that she was of dating age, so she ended up going on a date or two with the lawyer.
Uh, yeah, which
And of course, there is kind of a plot here. Evidently, no one has figured out where the fortune is in the home. So, according to the lawyer, they get the house and they get the ghosts, and that's pretty much all that they expect. And it's actually Buck who comes across the first little bits of money.
uh, Yeah, that's actually a very interesting detail they did. I think there was a moment where it was said that a corrupt person couldn't find the fortune, and it was found by a child. And yeah, he found it by sliding down the staircase, which is something an adult wouldn't do, probably. So,
Well, and the father's name is Cirrus Zorba. Uh,
yeah, that's
where in the remake, um,
it was
the uncle's name was Cyrus
Criticus.
Criticus,
Yeah,
which was an interesting twist of using the name.
indeed, I noticed that.
And we have an interesting round of ghosts here, 12 of them, which include a wailing lady, clutching hands, a fiery skeleton, an Italian chef murdering his wife and her lover in the kitchen, a hanging lady, an executioner holding a severed head, a fully grown lion with its headless tamer, a floating head presumably belonging to the tamer, as well as that of Plato Zorba himself, all held captive in this eerie house, waiting and looking for an unlucky 13th ghost to free them. So, in a
Oh,
sense, there is a similarity between having the 12 ghosts and needing a 13th ghost to free the ghosts from the house.
oh yeah. Although in this one, from what I remember, there wasn't so much elaboration on each ghost individually. Like we had,
No, they didn't have a storyline, a line or a backstory, which is what kind of what we get all fleshed out in the remake, which is what I like about that film. You get more of a story behind why each ghost is dead. You get what
did.
I'm saying?
Yeah,
Especially now that you've seen the backstories.
yeah, yeah, I did.
I mean that was something that okay, maybe you didn't see it in the theaters at the time, but it came as those came as extras on the DVD, and you got to learn some of their backstories, which was cool. So
Oh, definitely. Like we get some side stories about particular characters who weren't described in detail in the movie. So it was interesting to see. Yeah.
so apparently we get to see a little bits and pieces of these ghosts, and I think the thing that some people forget about this film is that you are supposed to have that ghost viewer to see the ghosts and to see them in all their glory, so to speak. So in a sense, if you're watching it without, it may not be as exciting. To You just see a blue screen with something red looking like it appears on the screen, and I like the fact that he the kid Buck, he goes down to the basement and he finds that Shadrach the Magnificent trunk, and then he opens up the cage, and all of a sudden the lion comes out, and then he sees the tamer.
Oh, oh yeah. Yeah, that was a pretty cool scene. I mean, although in this version we didn't really get to know each ghost individually, from what I understood, this tamer was actually trying to save the kid from the lion ghost. From what I understood, which
Well, the three ghosts that seem to be more prevalent are and the ones that seem to be more more what is it more that you see is the lion tamer and the lion and maybe the floating head. You get to see the chef in the kitchen throwing his or not throwing his axe. He just axes the one woman in the head, and she doesn't even do anything. She just stands there, bobs her head, and lets it happen. It's like okay, there's the melon, but um, but it's supposed to be more terrifying. And I think at the time, in its time period, it might have been like weird and strange, and people might have been like, kind of thing. At least in that kind of a mindset, it wasn't
well,
something that you normally saw.
well, at that time, probably, yeah. I mean, for today's standards, it's not very realistic or very scary. Well, to me at least. After
It's
all, the
it's more of a feeling of creepiness,
yeah, yeah.
not really necessarily a scare factor, but the movie has an air of creepiness to me.
Well, true, yeah.
Now, what do you think about those big honking glasses?
Oh, they looked pretty cool. Uh,
I
I
thought
wonder.
they did too. And what about that first time that the father put them on Cirrus?
Oh, yeah, from what I remember, he saw some ghosts and got scared when he realized it was true, right?
Yeah, there was
Uh,
something that was spinning. Um, might have been something similar to like the fiery skeleton or the clutching hands or something like that, or maybe it might have even been a beginning of what you might have thought the Plato Zorba might have been. But I like the fact that Plato Zorba was the uncle was actually on their side. Um,
yeah, that's very different from the remake.
I mean that moment where the candles just kind of all went out at once, and then one of them floated up and down to the bed, and then the bed like automatically went down and came back up. I think he was trying to tell him that he died by that.
Yeah, uh, yeah, I figured out that was how he died, and then we found out something even more shocking about that later on.
Oh yeah. So what did you think about the housekeeper?
Oh, well, she was a little creepy, but yeah, in the end, she wasn't really bad after all, from what I understood.
No, her name is Elena, but her name is Margaret Hamilton, I believe, and she played the Wicked Witch of the West
Oh,
in the Wizard of Oz musical that we know, uh, with Dorothy Gale and all that jazz. So
oh, cool.
in 1939, which was only 20 years before this, or 21 years before this. So she's actually older here. And I like, and if you do not know, we have obviously and are going to spoil the shit out of the rest of this film. So um, please bear that in mind.
Yeah, definitely.
But she ultimately gives a sort of a um, indication that she may actually be a witch in the end by taking a broomstick
Oh.
and leaving the room like she had other
y-
things planned. At the end,
y-
she gives a little small smile, but they end up holding a séance to and the lawyer. He's the one that is like all gloom and doom and trying to get them to leave because he's trying to look for the money too, and he's the one who comes across Buck finding the money. What do you think about that part where Bucks found this? Well, he accidentally found the money, but what do you think about the part where the lawyer is trying to keep it a secret?
Well, first of all, the way the money was hidden inside the staircase was pretty brilliant. A very creative place to hide money,
I know, right?
and yes, for
You want a
sure,
staircase like that hides money?
I wouldn't mind. Yeah, like I said, it's very interesting as it was said that the money was hidden in a way that a corrupt person couldn't find it. And like I said before, it was a child that found it, and a child couldn't be corrupt, presumably. And yeah, Buck was doing something that children usually do, and that was what led to money being found. Now,
One
about
one particular creepy moment that I liked was when the lawyer Rush was trying to scare Medea with that mask, and when you only saw his feet in those boots that were covered with the spider webs.
oh yeah,
What did you
yeah.
think about that part? Do you think
Well,
that part was
actually,
pretty cool?
yeah, it was cool, although I have to say it was a bit predictable that this ghost would be somehow different from the other ghosts because the others were done with this effect that they were all half transparent and so on, not very realistic. And this one was moving fully like a person and wasn't transparent and so on. So I did think there would be. I didn't know it was Ben, the lawyer, but I did realize there was going to be something different about that one.
He's still. I mean, the camera movements on how he was walking through the room. To me, that part is like priceless because you can see like some imagery of like you know. This has to be a creepy dude, you know, walking in these boots. I mean, you don't exactly hear Nancy Sinatra singing "These boots are made for walking" during it, uh, but you get a sense of creepiness um, with the whole montage. I kept thinking to myself, and I spoke out loud while I was watching it with my fiance earlier, that I would find it hard to walk with those cobwebs that's connected to those boots like that. I
Oh,
would find it hard to not trip my own self
huh. Well,
because of
that's
the way the
interesting.
cobwebs were connected to because they connected to the boots below the pant legs. So to me,
Mm.
how tight the cobwebs were would might have tripped myself up somewhere along the way.
Well, I'd say it depends on whether those were real cobwebs or not. As we know, real cobwebs are very fragile and they would they would sooner break apart than hinder the person from moving. But yeah.
True. And those seem quite strong, like Spider-Man strong.
Nice one.
So it seemed like well, some spider webs can be very strong. I mean, if woven enough, I mean, when you take a broom to some web, sometimes it takes several sweeps to get the spider webs away. So
Oh, yeah, at one point I remember reading in some encyclopedia that a thread of spider web is apparently firmer than a thread of steel of equal thickness.
sometimes it depends upon the spider web or the silk.
Yeah.
But in any case, so after that, um, that's right. There was someone that Cyrus knew that knew the uncle, and he could actually read the text of whatever book that I think they found in the house that was of Latin, because they found the uncle's hidden area where he would work, and they found a book that had like Latin texture or Latin, and he had someone translate it that he knew at the museum that I think that he worked at, because it just so happens that Cyrus works for a museum as kind of a curator or whatnot, as we see in the very beginning.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So he has someone translate it for him, and it talks about how to communicate with the dead, I believe. So um, he suggested that maybe he should contact Elena, who had been a very good help with the uncle in the ways of communicating with the spirits. And he was like, "Oh yeah, Elena's our housekeeper."
Uh,
And he's like, "Well, do you think that she can actually conduct a séance?" And he's like, "Well, there's no harm in asking, is there?" And the lawyer's like, "Well, weren't you gonna like leave from the place or whatnot?" And we're like, there's no reason why we can't go tomorrow, is there? We can hold a séance tonight, right?" So they do, and apparently Plato contacts him, and he says some very eerie words, saying 13, one of you, and well, death 13, 13, one of you, and I think one more thing.
uh, I don't remember exactly what he said, but yeah, I think he announced that someone in the house was going to die.
Correct. And little do we know, no, I mean, if I were a child, I wouldn't just be sleeping, a sleeping form, though. I wouldn't be that tired. Or, after after telling the lawyer that he's like, "I'm not tired," and then he goes up to sleep right away because he's so damn excited about finding the money and giving it to his family. And then he's dead ass asleep upstairs while the seance is going on. It's kind of irregular.
Uh,
I mean, he just went up to bed. How can he be dead asleep once his head hits the pillow? Well, being that excited, I'd be like up all night
hmm.
waiting for the shit to happen.
Oh, well, that's a good point, yeah.
But this kid, Buck, he's dead ass asleep enough for him to carry him to that bed. And then the only thing that saves him is hearing the noise of his great uncle. And of course, what do you think about that whole lawyer death incident?
Well, I have to say I found it a little bit predictable. I didn't know how exactly he was going to die, but when they announced that someone was going to die, I kind of figured out it would be him. As shortly before that, we found out that he was a bad guy, so it was only logical if one of them in the house had to die, it would be him. So. Yeah, it was a little predictable.
What did you think about the fact that we actually got to see what Plato looked like as one of the spirits? Because he actually turned around to look back at whoever was standing behind him. You actually got to see what he looked like in profile, and it looked similar to the mask that dude was wearing earlier. What do you
Oh, oh well, yeah, yeah, that was pretty interesting, especially the whole thing about him actually being one of the ghosts, which wasn't the case in the remake.
Well, and the way that he came in was it came in through that grate that was there before.
Uh, I'm sorry, I had a sound glitch. What did you say?
The thing he came in through was the grate, and um, through like some kind of a fog coming out of the grate. That was kind of interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how the hell did they get a fog machine in the grate, eh?
Well, good question. Like I said, I couldn't have even imagined that what they did at the cinema with these glasses that you described and everything. I wouldn't have imagined that being possible back then. So, uh,
what did you think about the fact that the glasses blew up in the end?
oh, well, I kind of wondered how and why it happened. I think it was hinted that Elaine was the one who did it with some magic or something, unless I got that wrong.
Oh, I wanted to mention that there was a moment where you could actually see the string to something. There was a fly that was buzzing around for a moment while the lawyer was outside of the room, and they were about to open the box, and the fly landed on the glasses, and it like supposedly died.
Oh, oh yeah, I remember that scene, but I didn't notice the string.
Yeah, there was actually a string attached to the fly. You could see it just being like whatever. That's one you could actually tell that it was not real.
Interesting, I didn't notice that.
But in any case, that's just good cheese, man. Oh, and yeah, anthropomorphic fiend. This is definitely one of my favorite directors too. So thank you, um, anthropomorphic fiend. He said one of my favorite directors, William
Oh,
Wyler.
thank you.
Keep being awesome, guys.
Thank you.
So in any case, what did you think about um, how everything ended up? Do you think that the lawyer deserved his death, and that the family deserved the money in the end?
Well, yes, I do think he deserved to end the way he did because, for whatever reason, he tried to kill that child. If he had only tried to steal the money, I wouldn't think he deserved to die. But when he tried to kill the boy, then yeah, he
Well,
got what he
I
deserved.
believe that he's actually the one who killed the uncle to begin with to start this whole family process of getting the house, and that's why he wanted to scare them away from the property so that he could look for the treasure on his own, and
Uh,
so on and so forth. So he masterminded the whole thing, and I think he didn't expect that the family was going to get as involved as they did, and you know, just the spirits weren't on his side for this one.
for some reason, I didn't realize that he was behind the uncle's death. What was it that made you figure that out?
I actually did some research because um, that's kind of what happened is Benjamin Rush. Um, he ended up he was the one who killed him. Um, and I believe that that's something that you don't exactly get right away. But you kind of have to assume that because he knew about the bed to begin with. How did he know?
Oh, good point. Yeah.
So, in order to know about these things, he had to have done it before himself. And he's obviously scaring Medea to a certain extent. So, um, and then of course we see him walk with the same boots, except without the mask, over to the boys' room. So,
Yeah.
but I thought the movie was okay. Maybe it was predictable. Maybe we've seen a lot of horror films to know some of the different tropes that go on in these particular films. But I thought that it was a unique process to see these ghosts with actual like 3D glasses, Illusiono glasses, or whatnot. And you can actually pick up one of those for about $50 on eBay at the moment if you really
Oh.
wanted to.
Well, probably not at the moment, but yeah, it would be
I'm just
interesting.
saying I saw one or two of them on eBay, and I was like, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot that I want to pick up, and I just maybe eventually as a collector's thing that would be kind of cool to own. But right now, at this moment, I don't need it. But
Yeah, it is a bit expensive.
it's still cool to know that these types of things are out there, and that this was one of the earlier films to deal with this kind of a subject matter that he used those kind of graphics to in order to get the audience more involved, and just to entertain a little bit more. So um, I thought that this is a unique film for that matter alone. Because I mean, when it first came out, you'd get one of these things and you'd leave home with one of them, and you'd be able to have something to take from the film to remember it. And I think that that's one thing you wanted to encourage and have something to last and be memorable. And it was for
Of
a lot of
course.
people. Uh, it's I mean, I think a lot of people love the story so much in the remake because it had a basis from this film. So
Oh, good point.
But I mean, there were some similarities. What out of the similarities of this film, what did you like about this film? What were some of your favorite moments?
Mm, well, I liked, for example, the Ouija board scene. It was interesting to see how they were all fascinated with the Ouija board and describing how it works and everything, which most people nowadays know, especially if they watch horror movies like we do. And uh,
And they were talking about it like you were watching a Leave It to Beaver episode, you know?
yeah, and
If you've ever seen any of Leave It to Beaver, they're like, "Hey, Wally, what's going on?" You know, they're more of a family, uh, and a positive family, and when they make mistakes, they moralize it a lot. So,
yeah.
but that was an interesting one. You don't get a whole lot of films that explain the Ouija board from the '60s.
Yeah, like they even read the board saying mystifying oracle, which is this small line that most people don't even pay attention to.
Well, I imagine at this moment the Ouija board was kind of taboo. So it was kind of a whispered around, a whispered game that you kept in the back of your closets because you don't want your kids messing with the spirits. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It
well,
and a lot of people were religious at this point in time. So, well, I
hmm,
know that there are some people who are still religious to this
uh,
day, but it was more prominent and more taboo at this time period, especially since I remember hearing about the '50s and the fact that America almost got rid of comics
oh, I didn't know that. Why?
because it was influencing their children. It was making them act violent, act out. Oh my God,
Oh.
pandemic!
Oh my.
Because
I
little Bobby went and pulled a gun because he saw it in the comic,
um yeah, some people have that mindset even nowadays.
just like the music told them to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, there is a right and wrong, and most people know what the difference between right and wrong. So
Um
common sense tells us that you're in charge of your own responsibilities. You're in charge of your own actions.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, we all played games as kids, and it's not like we try to do things from the games in real life. So,
Of course, you can listen to music and get inspired by it. I mean,
oh yeah,
that you can do, but can it necessarily control your mind and
uh,
tell you what to do? All of a sudden,
no,
Metallica says, "Don't listen to your parents," or something like that. That, and of course, the kids don't listen, but we still listen to the music.
yeah, I mean, if you don't have it within you, you won't really do it. Like, if you're not a murderer, you can listen to 100 songs about murder, and you still won't go out and murder someone.
Well, I
Uh,
know that Manson, Charlie Manson, he listened to the Beatles' White Album and listened to Helter Skelter, and he thought that Helter Skelter was this war between the blacks and the whites, that the blacks were gonna eventually take over the planet, and that's what he was afraid of. And I think that that influenced him a little bit, but I don't think that you can influence people enough to control them through music.
No, no, I don't think so either.
So, but in any case, let's look at the music here. I think I looked at it earlier, but I'm not entirely too sure. But I'm pretty sure that um, the musician, the composer behind this, uh, was Von Dexter. The music was by Von Dexter, and I guess he was behind the. Um, okay, yeah, he was behind the composer behind Mr. Sardonicus, The Tingler, House on Haunted Hill, and earlier on in 1952, he was part of the Dangerous Assignment. I guess he died in 1996, but he did. He really didn't do too much after um, Mr. Sardonicus. Uh,
Oh,
he was born in 1912 in Aurora, Illinois, and ended up dying at the age of 83 in Rhinebeck, Iowa. Iowa. Idiots out wandering around.
oh,
uh, well, IOWA, idiots out wandering around. Certain anagrams that I remember. Let's see, but yeah, he did a bunch with William Castle. So, um, and but it's interesting that he didn't do too much after this. I don't know. I don't know why, but
I,
evidently, maybe he was. Maybe he was tired of it at the time. Who knows?
oh,
But
could be.
in any case, I guess if I had to choose a favorite, I would have to choose when Buck went down to the basement. For some reason, there's something
Oh,
about him opening up that trunk, whipping that whip around, and then he sees that iron ass cage like whoa, behind him, and he's actually got to lift this thing up. It's all cobwebbed and shit, and all of a sudden the lion comes out,
oh,
the tamer, and all that jazz. That's just one of my favorites. Oh, and the
yeah.
fact that he slides down the banister and money falls out. Come on, I'd have loved to have had that happen if I had to slid down a banister. I want to be rich.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to find money that way.
Who doesn't?
So, in any case, let's see where this thing was filmed. Uh, see if it was filmed anywhere different, at least. So let's see. Let's see. It's also known as. Doesn't really say.
Who?
Yeah. Let's see. Maybe it says over here reception. Okay, so according Howard Thompson of the New York Times called the film a simple, old-fashioned haunted house yarn that would be a lot better off without this gimmick. Variety wrote, the idea is sound and exploitable, but the execution doesn't fully come off. Explaining the ghosts' lack of personality and aren't frightening. so that there isn't sufficient tension in the sequences during which the ghost viewer comes into play. The monthly film bulletin called it a workman-like film, but not very frightening horror film. The ghosts are which are a dull red color, are far less effective when witnessed than when their presence is merely suggested, especially when their viewability depends on a process as unremarkable as illusion O. So I guess they didn't. I guess things weren't exactly. Uh,
Mm.
they were mixed views. I think uh, it seemed like they were trying to be nice, but evidently it didn't scare them. But then
Yeah.
again, you know, by this time, most people who have seen many films are normally desensitized by things that could make them fear. So just like
Mm.
you and I, it's hard. It's hard to find a movie that'll make us look. Holy shit! I'm turning this fucker off. You know,
Indeed. Yeah, I don't remember the last time a movie really scared me.
like
Well,
scared you enough to turn it off and never turn it on again.
Uh, no, no, I don't remember that happening. There were some scenes in particular movies that really disgusted me and made me feel somewhat sick, but not like I would be afraid to keep watching or that I couldn't sleep or something like that.
Well, yeah, I've got a few of those that could probably turn your head a little bit, and be like, but
Uh, I could name some of those as well.
but in any case, alrighty. Did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about dealing with this film? Um, was there a scene that we did not discuss?
Oh, I'm not sure if there was a scene that we didn't discuss, but I did want to say I really liked the interior of the house in this movie. Like the one in the remake was interesting, like with all the glass walls and all the fancy stuff, but well, that one would be something that would be interesting to visit, but not a place where I would like to live. This one looked much nicer to me personally.
Well, let's talk about some of the goofs that may or may not have happened. Probably written by people who have nothing better to do, anyways. But um, here we go. So, dealing with continuity, when Medea and Rush are looking at the portrait of Dr. Zorba, Medea is holding her hands behind her. But when you see their reflection in the glass of the painting, Medea's hands are in front of her.
uh, I didn't notice that.
Neither did I. After the Ouija board scene, when Hilda Zorba is shown in bed at around 58 minutes, she's sitting up with her knees pulled up towards her chest. But in the close up from 2259 to 2300, she's leaning back against the headboard. Then in the next shot, at around 1 minute, she's in the original position.
Huh. Mm, no, I didn't notice such details. I'm sorry.
At an hour and 19 minutes, the boy is placed on the bed to be suffocated by it. His body changes positions throughout the scene.
Oh,
When the wind starts to blow at 6:42 after Buck makes his birthday wish, You can see from 6:45 to 6:46 that it is blowing from behind Mrs. Zorba and toward Medea, who is sitting across from Mrs. Zorba, consistent with the flames on the birthday candles blowing towards Medea as they are extinguished at 6:44. However, at 6 o'clock, a large fireplace was shown behind Mrs. Zorba, which appeared in an earlier scene at 5:12, rather than the double window with a phone and phone book sitting in front of it, shown from 6:42 to 6:43 to be the source of the wind. At 8:30, Medea is kneeling by the phone with the double window to her left, reading from the phone a book and talking to her father, who is returning from answering the front door. But for the window to have been behind Mrs. Zorba, the film frames must be flipped horizontally so that the window would be to her right. Without the frame flip, this window would have to be in the position of the single window shown from 6:45 to 6:46 without a phone and phone book sitting in front of
Wow.
it. I mean, these are things that evidently someone has time to sit through and watch it.
Oh, yeah, or at least someone
Factual.
that.
This is a factual error. When Buck is playing the great Shadrach's, the lion tamer's props, he opens the cage, then puts on the glasses. The image of the lion is far larger than the cage, which supposedly contained it. Granted that a ghost need not be subject to physical limitations, the cage could not have contained a live animal that size.
Oh, yeah, but now you did remind me of something interesting. Wasn't there a scene when the lawyer saw a ghost and he wasn't wearing the glasses?
Right? Um,
Um,
when Buck puts on the glasses and sees the lion, it its roaring is not synchronized with its mouth movements from 59 to 52:05. This could be a ghostly phenomenon chosen for its spooky effect. Revealing mistakes. After Buck slides down the banister and walks off, we see the money fall to the floor. It's clearly noticeable that the money didn't fall out of the hidden area in the stairs. If you look closely, you can tell it comes from somewhere above the stairs.
Phew.
In Rush's office, we see the fly buzzing around the glasses. After it gets zapped at around 33 minutes, it still keeps moving.
Phew.
At approximately 44 minutes into the film, Dr. Zorba is investigating his dead uncle's bedroom when eerie wind blows through and blows out all the candles. Then, one by one, the candles relight on the candelabra. One candle floats up on its own from the candelabra with its shadow cast upon the wall. As the candle floats, an occasional glimmer of the filament used to float the candle can be seen. As the candle returns to its place in the candelabra, you can see the shadow of the filament cast upon the wall.
Phew. Wow.
At about 14:10, it is evident that a puppeteer is manipulating the fly that drops down into the frame to pester Mrs. Zorba, as if it were a spider rather than a fly. Mrs. Zorba shoos the fly from her face, and it bounces over to the ghost glasses, where it is zapped by the power of the frames. The puppeteer allows the fly to bounce gently on the frame so that it settles neatly and visibly on the glasses. When the Ouija board planchette is flying around the room from 21 minutes and 58 seconds to 22 minutes and 8 seconds, you can see the wires that are holding it up. This is not apparent in the 2005 DVD version from Sony Home Entertainment.
Oh.
Apparently, these next goof items may give away important plot points. So, ladies and gentlemen, be prepared. When dropping on the 13th victim, the height of the canopy in Plato Zorba's room is sometimes higher than it was a few seconds earlier and stops moving. Altogether, with 2 to 3 feet to go from an hour and 19 minutes to an hour and 19 minutes and 7 seconds. After Buck slides down the banister and walks off, we see the money fall to the floor at around 3 minutes. From somewhere above the banister railing, within 5 spindles or 3 steps from the bottom of the stairs, later at around 8 minutes, Buck finds the money in a compartment in the 6th step from the bottom of the stairs. And the last revealing mistake. Around 49 minutes into the film, Medea awakens to the sound of her bedroom window banging from the wind. Sleepily, she gets up to lock it. When out from behind the drapes steps the decaying corpse of dead Uncle Zorba. The actor, Martin Milner, apparently can't see through the mask because he's looking off to Medea's left until the actor screams. Then Milner snaps his head slightly to the right in the direction of the screams.
Oh.
So, unless you have anything else to add, I think we can wrap this up here. So,
Well, I think we have discussed it all.
well, some of these things are things to ponder on, but obviously, someone has had a little bit too much time on their hands to notice all of these supposedly mistakes or non-mistakes. So,
Yeah, I notice that kind of things usually after watching a movie several times, at least 5 or 6.
oh yeah, but it's definitely something that you kind of have to explain sometimes in some of these discussions. So I didn't see them right offhand. I did see the fly. I didn't know that the fly did have a puppeteer. It was obvious because I could see the string. So, but
Yeah,
I look past that and I enjoy it for what it was, and I don't criticize it too much because it was an enjoyable film to a certain extent. I mean, it's got an interesting storyline. The money is hidden rather well. The lawyer gets
yeah,
the end, and it's kind of an enjoyable creepiness. Plus, it's got kind of a nod to the Wizard of Oz. So, to me, that's kind of an interesting, complex story. So,
yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah,
not
it
as
is.
the house may not be as complex as the one in the remake,
Yeah.
but it certainly has its own charm. So,
Yeah, I really liked the interiors in this one.
which is why I was trying to figure out where the hell they filmed this or whatnot. But IMDb evidently isn't as informative as to where this was located, film wise, or filmed, whether it was filmed locally, whether it was filmed directly in a studio, whether some of the exterior was actually somewhere else. I don't know. I mean, uh, I'd love this film to maybe get like a Criterion release or an Arrow release, so that maybe they can tell us where it may have been uh, filmed. Maybe.
yeah,
In any case, thank you for listening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure that we had fun discussing this film. Did you?
Definitely, definitely.
I mean,
I
it was definitely an interesting uh, point of view of the film, and there were some similarities between this one and the remake. Now, which one do you like more?
oh, that's an interesting question. Uh, well, there are things that I like better in the remake, yet there are things I like better in the original. But huh, yeah, it's difficult to say.
At this moment,
uh,
yeah, it's kind of difficult for me to say. The effects were magnificent on the remake. I mean, as far as CGI goes, I mean, all of those ghosts
oh
were
yeah,
were unique in the remake.
y-
So to me, trying to I guess I would have to say the remake I like better. Although I enjoy a lot of this film.
y-
I because I saw that film first. I enjoy that one because it has more um, history of how the ghosts came to be. You know,
y-
it's and they were a little bit more fleshed out. Uh,
yeah, that's definitely one thing where the remake is better.
yeah, and I wish that uh, maybe the lawyer or maybe Elena could have explained like a little bit about each of the ghosts, how they came to be dead, you know, a little bit better instead of us learning about each of these ghosts as we go along. You know, what was the purpose of these ghosts being in the house to begin with, and why were they trapped and could only get out of the house by one more death. You know, what are some of these? I mean, these are questions I would ask. You know,
Oh, well, yeah,
that
yeah,
weren't
actually,
explained.
good point. Yeah, indeed.
Whereas
I,
in the remake, there was a guy named Basilius who created a machine that was powered by the dead with powers by the devil, uh, and in order to make the machine work, to give that person all that power, someone had to be sacrificed. But
uh,
in any case, I think that's all the time that we have for today, folks. So thank you for listening. I just enjoy talking about films, and I enjoy showing them to my friend here, Boris,
uh,
because I'm sure
thank
some of
you.
these have a hard time probably showing up anywhere in Croatia.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely wouldn't have come across some of these movies if it wasn't for you, so thank you.
So I'm basically educating my friend here in all things horror and we may talk about some other films that are not horror down the road. We never know. So, but I know I do eventually want to get back to some of the films that we started out here talking about. So let's see what other. I think I'll go with a movie called House of Ghosts, um,
Oh,
which is a more recent film by remember the monster from Phantom Lake when we
oh,
went on about that one.
yes, yes.
Well, this one is by that same director, Christopher Mim.
Wow.
So I believe it was from how I've only seen it once, so I'll have to watch it again. House of Ghosts. I just figured, yeah, from 2012.
Oh,
So
cool.
I'll have to watch it maybe with you this time because I have a copy of it, and we'll watch it that way that I have figured out, so that uh, we both watch it and then go on about it.
Hmm, I wouldn't mind.
Alrighty. So, ladies and gentlemen, just go out and watch the film. It is called 13 Ghosts by William Castle. It is a pretty freaky film. So, definitely make sure that you have the proper glasses and make sure you don't get too excited. So, thank you for listening. Have a great day, evening, or morning, wherever you are. Like, share, and subscribe. And don't spend too much time in that haunted house very long.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you all for listening.